A major milestone is approaching for the act that helped to open up the Western Territory for farmers and many veterans. The Homestead Act, signed by President Abraham Lincoln on May 20th, 1862.
I think without the Homestead Act and without those many different people, what they've done, it'd be a very different country.
159 years ago, the Homestead Act was signed into law, and that one stroke of a pen led to population expansion.
The Homestead Act was in effect in 30 different states, basically from Florida and the far southeast all the way to Alaska. So it's not just the Great Plains or the western states, it's all over the country.
270 million acres, or 10% of U.S. land.
Which is an area about the size of California and Texas put together. That's a huge part of our country's history.
Opened to be claimed and settled, and it wasn't all covered wagons in Midwest prairie.
So homesteading ended in the lower 48 in 1976. Alaska got a special 10-year extension. So from 1976 to 1986, Alaska was the last state that you could homestead in.
That meant thousands of citizens, including former slaves, immigrants, and veterans, became landowners.
In fact, the very first and very last homesteaders were both veterans.
Land titles could be bought from the government for just $1.25 an acre, but you had to stay on that land for 5 years, build a home, and farm it. About 50% of homesteaders made it all 5 years.
Dealing with locusts eating your crops, dealing with blizzards, dealing with prairie fires, and frankly just dealing with the extreme loneliness of knowing that there were just maybe a few homesteaders within several miles of you, and so having to make it through the isolation of all that. There are a lot of things at play there that made it very, very difficult, for sure.
Veteran Daniel Freeman was the first homesteader to file a claim.
He was the first homesteader on January 1st, 1863. He actually met a land office agent at a New Year's Eve party and convinced him to open up the office and let him sign right at midnight as soon as the law took effect. But he was a soldier in the Civil War.
His home is now the Homestead National Historic Park, located just outside Beatrice, Nebraska, where they tell the homesteading story and help some of the 93 million descendants of homesteaders living here in America learn more about their history.
So that's like a 1 in 3, maybe 1 in 4 chance that you're tied to the homesteading story.
A story that helped not just populate the country, but jumpstart a revolution.
The way it changed our country and turned America into an industrial superpower, in part because of turning us into the breadbasket of the world, right?
Now, if you'd like to look for information on your family's homesteading history, head over to glowrecords.blm.gov. There, you'll find land patents, survey plats, and field notes, along with land status records and tract books. It's a great resource, and you just might spend hours chasing information about a family legacy.